Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly O'Horo, and this is Adaptable, Behavior Explained. Hi, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to talk today about parenting a child with autism and all that goes along with that, or as much as we can cover in our episode. I am super grateful to introduce to you Taylor O'Horo, my daughter-in-law and the mother of my son, Jensen, who happens to have autism. And she's been brave and vulnerable enough to be here with us today so that we can talk about this journey and what it's been like, and hopefully share with you all a little bit so that you don't feel so alone, and shed some light for those who are not privy to what it's like, a little bit more about this topic. So Taylor, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
So we can go ahead and dig right in. When I was thinking about doing this episode, one of the things that occurred to me was when he was so little, and as a mental health professional, I was observant, but not with an overly critical eye, but I recognized, something did seem a little bit off compared to, our oldest granddaughter, your daughter, and other children I had seen at similar ages. And I was just wondering, what made you question if he was developmentally appropriate or on track?
I think the first indication for me was going off my own gut instincts and just feeling from the very beginning like something was just different. And what I remember was he never cried. He loved to be held, but he also was okay not being held for like several hours at a time. I remember at one point, a doctor said, maybe they can track with their eyes. And I just watched and he wasn't tracking with his eyes. So I think as early as like probably 2 months old, I was kind of starting to get an idea that maybe there was a developmental delay of some sort, but I wasn't really sure what that might be.
Yeah. I remember personally, and this might be helpful for family members too. There was a moment for me, and I would say it was probably around the 9 or 10 month mark where, I don't want to over-identify somebody. You can't diagnose your own family, but I am trained to be aware of developmental appropriate milestones. And I remember thinking as I watched him, like, I'm not sure, something's not quite right. I don't know what it is. And as a mom, didn't really know how to broach the subject. And I had this internal conflict because I wanted to be honest and transparent, but I also didn't want you guys to be upset with me if I brought it up and you weren't either in agreement or ready to hear it or wanting to explore it. So I remember for a few months having that sense that something wasn't quite right and not having said something. When we started talking about it, what was it like for you?
Honestly, it was like the moment where you kind of know, right? Like as a mom, you just have this, like, and there's this other part where you're kind of like, are people getting in my head? Like, am I, delving too much into this? Am I looking for something to be wrong? Like, is it a me issue? So there was definitely this divide of like, just who to trust and how to proceed. And I just had to follow, the advice of the people I trusted, which were you. And a few other family members and doctors that were kind of starting to go, okay, I may be seeing a little bit of something. Let's just keep watching. And that's one of the hardest things to be told, is just to keep watching when you don't know what's going on.
So it was a little bit validating because you had a sense much younger than I did.
Yes.
That something wasn't quite right, but to have me point something out turned out to be
liberating.
Oh, good. Okay. That's good. And honestly, we've never really talked about it in this way before.
Right.
So it's nice to hear that because, you never came back at me as if I did something inappropriate or out of bounds. No. But it is nice to hear that it was okay. And
it was actually appreciated because it made me feel like, oh, okay, I'm not the only one who sees this. Because in the world, right, some people just maybe don't see it because they're not around the kid enough or... So it was good to have eyes from someone who was around him so frequently that could tell me like, okay, I'm seeing this too. Right, so it was actually like, all right. And then I also felt like in that moment, because you were so, let's figure this out together, it was like, I'm not alone. So that was really relieving in that moment too, just knowing like.
Not everybody's is fortunate to have support that either gets it or understands or could Yeah. So
and that
I can
is
imagine.
going to accept your kid and love your kid.
Oh, for sure.
For all their differences. And
I appreciate that. So when we were talking about it, thinking about it, tell us what your first steps were in, I guess, verifying or figuring out. Can you share with everybody what you did next?
So the first thing I did was took Jensen to his doctor, his pediatrician, who I trust, who obviously, as you know, has seen all of our family, right, who we adore. And I said, do you think something's wrong? And he said, well, let me refer you to AZIP, who is the state agency who covers birth to 3 before kiddos can really even get evaluated, right, through the state, because that's usually around 2. So I knew that I needed to get him services of some sort, but I didn't know how. I didn't know where to start. I just needed help. So AZIP came in, and they were a great resource for getting me in touch, and they'd come in and help, and they coached me mostly. And that's kind of their model, is coaching the parents, because we're with them most of the time, right? And so as soon as he was about 18 months old, we got him into speech therapy. Right. And that was when I was like, okay, he's still not talking. He's not even babbling. So obviously, let's get him into speech, get him started. Mm-hmm. And then from there, his speech therapist was like, well, let's just watch. And so it's just a bunch of people watching at this point, right? We're all just like, watching.
But what are we going to do?
What are we going to do? Something. Right. And there's a part in me that's a fixer. So I'm like, how do I fix this? Like, what do I do?
Sure. Well, and as any attentive mom would want to make sure you didn't, kick the ball down the road. You want to be proactive with these kinds of things. So tell me a little bit about what it was like learning. He does meet the criteria for autism. Yeah. And what was it like for you when you first found that out? There was a name for it. What went on in you? What were the thoughts, conversation between you and your husband? Can you share a little bit about like the initial onset of having this told to you, like, yep, that's what's happening?
I want to be very compassionate as I say this, because I know everybody's experience is different.
Right.
My experience it was like this kind of like my world turned upside down, and not in a bad way by any stretch of the imagination. Just I knew that it was going to be different, and I knew that I was going to have to conform to different. And the initial was like, you have these expectations as a parent of how your kid's going to be, which again is motivated inside, and it's not about us, right? It's about letting them be their unique selves.
Right.
So initially it was like this expectation versus reality. My reality changed. And I went through the guilt of like, did I do this to him? I mean, you get this fine list of all the things you can't do when you're pregnant. You can't eat, shellfish, or, you can't do this massive list of things. And I was thinking, did I eat something that contributed to this? Or was I not in my body enough that he felt that? Like I really had this massive guilt. And so I went into fix-it mode, as I think we all do. And thankfully went to trauma therapy too. So that kind of helped settle, that part of it down. But right. Yeah, it was definitely a very confusing time in my life of like, I don't want the world to eat my kid alive either.
Right. And was there any sense of, urgency? Like, if we don't get this figured out and he doesn't end up functional or independent enough, like, what does that mean for me as a person? Did any of that cross your mind?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Because, you have so many people in your ear telling you how you're supposed to do this, or this doesn't work, or this doesn't work. And I just had to go with my gut. Right. And I spent so many hours researching, like, what am I supposed to do? What is the most like, and what I got to is I don't need to fix him. Right. Because he's not broken.
Right.
I just have to accept that it looks different, and his different is actually a gift for my expectation to reality, really. And so what I really wanted to delve into was making sure that he had some social skills.
Right.
Because I know that rejection trauma is real, and I know that it hurts. And I know that I can't always protect him from that, but I just really wanted to make sure that I did jump into that I jumped into, making sure I did the right thing. And especially because they emphasize how important it is from birth to 3. Like, the earlier you catch it, the efficacy is it's just higher.
Well, their little brains are developing at such exponential rates when they're so little. And,
Right.
I have to really tip my hat to you, because I don't know what it's like to be a young mother and find this out about my child and know like everything about the trajectory of my daily experience is about to massively change. And if I don't get on board with that, the outcome will essentially be my fault, right? Because we have access to resources and understand something. And then if we choose not to do something about that, boy, then the outcome really is our responsibility. I should say responsibility more than fault, because some people, when they find out really overwhelming things, they shut down. And it's not necessarily that they're bad people. They just don't know how to move forward because they're frozen. And so I want to make sure not to speak in shaming language about people's adaptations. However, I can't say enough to you about how many conversations, Dad and I have had about just, girl is getting it. I mean, they don't miss the treatments. He's going to all of the, the ABA, the speech, the OT, and just, getting him to all of his services has really been a part-time job for you guys. And the fact that you've been so diligent and amazing it's exceptional, honestly. And you really should be so proud of yourself. And it kind of makes me choke up thinking about that. He's very lucky. Love you. He's such a special guy. And I love that you said it was a gift, because, without knowing this at this current stage, you wouldn't necessarily know that anything was such a developmental delay. He's a little bit quirky, a little bit eccentric, but he's just nothing but love. I mean, he's just so special. And so I know he's a gift to our family, but I think this is really important for people to get to hear, because, not everybody has the resources or learns early, about what's going on or has, knows what to do or can have the wherewithal to make sure that services are, participated in for the child. So, I mean, there's, a whole array of ways that people intervene when they find these things out. And so I just can't commend you guys enough and for taking such reins, whether the adaptation was overfunction and fix, it served you, and that he got a lot of support really early. And that's awesome. But that leads me to another question that I have for you, which is, we know from the adverse childhood experience study, if we have a family member that has, a developmental delay or a mental illness or anything that requires like a lot of time and attention because of something that's not their fault, it does have a pretty tremendous or significant impact on the other family members. Right. So we've got 2 other lovely granddaughters as part of your family system, one who is 8 and one who is 3. She's
close to 3, yeah.
She's 3 soon.
She acts like she's 4.
Yeah, she acts like she's 34.
I know.
But anyways, so what's it been like for you, both behaviorally and then internally, as you know this? I mean, a little fun fact, she's in school to become a psychologist and hopefully join us in the ranks and maybe even be a future assessor to help other parents that run into these issues. So we'll see,
love that.
We'll see how your career path takes you. But in the meantime, she's got a lot of education already under her belt, about to graduate with her degree in psychology as well. So knowing I have a child with a special need and I have 2 other children that are equally important, what has that been like for you to try to balance it all? How's that felt? What do you do?
If I'm being honest, as a mom, you never think you're getting it right. No matter how hard you try, it's like, I come home and I'm like, I got 3 kids. I got to give 3 kisses. I got to give 3 hugs. 3 kids got to eat. And 3 kids have to have that equality, right? In my home, I believe in that. And so I did go through a period of phase, like we talked about with the fixer part. That's like, I got to figure out what's the best treatment, who's the best doctor, who's the best naturopath. Like, I just have to create this community of people I trust that are going to help me. Because at a time, and I'm not very good at asking for help, I needed help, right? I knew it. I knew this was bigger than me. And I was like, I just need help. And so I think what ended up happening was I overfunctioned so much because I wanted to fill his love tank so full. Because
and also to offset the guilt, probably, like if I was any part of why this happened,
yes,
I got to get busy trying to fix that, right? That makes sense.
And if the world eats him alive, he's going to be resilient enough to tolerate it because he comes home to a place where his mom's got his back and loves him and is going to support him in whatever that endeavor is.
I remember one time you even said that. It reminds me of that time when I said, it'll be interesting to see who they all start to bring home. And he's like, he's not bringing anyone home. It's always going to be his mama. And that's all that's going to be there. And I just remember laughing, thinking, I have 5 sons. Yeah, that's not what happened. So you better open up those arms.
I know. But, and I hope one day that's a reality for him,
right.
and
it absolutely will be. He is such a love.
Such a love. And, and I do want to say that, we're told frequently in society by many people, and I've been told by doctors, he may never speak. And I've had one doctor actually definitively say he'll never speak. Or, they don't know how to show emotions and you're probably never going to get the affection. But I've learned that's a lie. He asks for a hug and kiss every night before bed. He plays make-believe. He thinks he's a train every day. He's a choo-choo train all day long.
Or a shark.
Yes, or a shark.
I'll be glad when that phase is over with the baby. And now Maddie's onto the baby shark
Maddie's
thing.
on
I'm
the
like,
baby
oh my gosh,
shark.
always about that shark.
Always about that shark. But, it's like he really has shown me that, like, he's adaptable.
Right.
In his own way. And as we all are, right? Like we all are just trying to adapt to this environment, and he's adapting in his own way. And so, as you know, he's little Mr. MacGyver. Right. And he can break into anything and he can build anything. And he wants to help his papa build because he's loves his papa. But to go back to that question, it was hard because I wanted to make sure that my eldest child was getting the attention she needed, because there was a little, moment in time where she was struggling with school or other things, of course. And then my youngest child too, who I had just had, because I think Jensen and Madison are only like 18 to 2.
Yeah, they're so close.
They're so close that I was like, I have this new baby that I want her to have secure attachment too. So how do I do this right? And there was a period of my time where it really did take up so much real estate. Right. Trying to get the right providers and get them in. But now that it's all kind of said and done, we've been able to implement a little bit more of like equality within my house. Yes. And so it's where
I remember when that shifted. I remember when, thank God for my own EMDR therapy, right? Because loving those little babies of yours as much as I love my own kids, and knowing like it's not my lane, it's not my journey. And you guys have been so wonderful in allowing us to be part of your village. And we have tried really a lot to be honoring of what it is. What is it that we need to be doing? How do you want us to show up? What is it that, because you guys are putting in all the work to figure out all the guidance, but, and we want to be, a united village as opposed to, things are so different at each home, and we do spend a lot of time together. And I think it's good for them to know there's uniformity in what they can expect from not only the love, but also what's going to be okay and not okay in our homes and things like that. And that there's that support, which is so important. And we are really lucky to have that. So I'm grateful that, a lot of people don't have that with their daughters-in-law. And I feel like we're so close and
of course
so thankful to that. But I was going to say, thankfully, with my own therapy, I remember it shifted for me because I noticed that there was like a lot zeroed in on him because of what was going on, and feeling some of my own anxiety around like, now the oldest is really kind of getting the short end of the stick here. And, it's a burden. Everything's a burden because she's old enough to handle things, and we've got to go fix this one. And the little one comes and she just McSquawk. And you're just like, she's not going to be ignored. No. And watching how all this was unfolding. And I remember like almost a settling of your nervous system, because that shifted and it became so much less dire for you and that was so wonderful. Not just because of course it'll benefit, all the other kids, but because it was beautiful to see that evolution in you and that acceptance and settling down in you, which of course they all benefit from. Yes. They all benefit when mom's calm, babies can regulate. And the fact that you really took so much initiative to work on that for yourself is another majorly commendable thing that you did. So you should be really proud of yourself, always being a work in progress and continuing the journey.
Learning.
What advice would you give a parent who just finds this out? What if you had something you could share with a parent that you wish someone would have told you, maybe? What would you say?
I would give, it's kind of a little bit of a long-winded piece of advice, but it would be trust your gut. Your gut's never going to steer you wrong, right? Inside you. And also, it doesn't hurt to take, the kiddo to the pediatrician and just get a quick checkup and maybe it's nothing, maybe it's something, but at least it can ease your mind either way, right? Because the reality is once you do kind of get that paper that says, your kid's ASD level, whatever, because I don't love to sit with the labels and the levels, but when they say that, there's this moment of like almost, it's kind of like a weight off your shoulder almost.
Right.
Like now you have confirmation and now you know how to proceed. And
there's something that you can do about it.
Yes.
So when you think about this journey, there has been just a treasure trove of information that you have learned. I mean, you are a tremendous resource because of all the research and everything that you've done. But for those of the people that are newer in this journey of finding out about their child, what resources can you offer that could make things a little bit easier so that maybe they don't have to work quite as hard as you did when they figure this out about their own child?
So the first thing I actually did was I went and joined a bunch of Facebook groups of autism moms.
Okay.
And I just started, kind of engulfing myself in that community and finding out what I needed to find out. Like, how do I get an autism evaluation? Where do I go? Like, what are the best places? It's a little disheartening because most places have about a year wait.
Wow.
And so there really is a need for more availability for that. And there's a bunch of kiddos that unless you can pay cash price, it's just a long wait. So one of my biggest recommendations is call around to all the places, get on every wait list you can get on until the first person calls you back, and that was the biggest thing I did. Because once you have that evaluation and you have that piece of paper, the psychologist or whoever evaluates typically, and it can be, I think, a developmental pediatrician as well, that paper will show you where their kind of strengths and not so much strengths are. Basically, you just go off that. So we knew Jensen wasn't speaking. So I was like, okay, I want to find a good speech therapist. So I reached out to a team of people here at Infinite because I knew and trusted them. And I said, does anybody know of any good clinics? And they pointed me to CDT Kids, which they've just been amazing.
Right.
And so really finding good places too, full of providers who are, tried and true and people love.
Have a heart for this work and
have
they're
a
there
heart
for the right reasons. Yeah.
Right. And there's not a lot of turnover.
Right.
With ABA therapy, there is a lot of turnover in RBTs and it is hard work. And I really commend those people for the job they do. I just really do. And so it's a hard job and it's hard to find an ABA company that's going to take, a new kiddo as well. Cause that's again, a wait list. So it's again, calling around and it's begging and pleading and just finding all the resources and you'll get a support coordinator and ask all the questions. Ask so many questions.
So be an advocate. Be persistent. Don't give up.
Continue learning.
Ask for help.
Yep.
Continue learning. And I would add, have grace for yourself if it takes some time or if you need to trade providers because, you ended up somewhere that isn't the best fit for your family or for your needs.
Trust your instinct on that for sure.
Trust your instinct. Good. So we'll go ahead and put the resources that we talked about today and more in the comments below. So please feel free to utilize those. I really, really thank you for coming and being here with me today and sharing in such a vulnerable, courageous way about what your journey has been like. You are such a special gift. He is such a special gift to our family. I just thank you for sharing a little bit about your story with us so that others might not have it quite so challenging. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
So thanks everybody for tuning in. We hope this episode was helpful and don't forget to lead with love. It'll never steer you wrong.